I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to Vlog 61. What do I do while my PhD is being examined? Brilliant question that comes from one of our great students currently under examination, Edwin. So Edwin, great question, great topic. Let's do this one for you. And Edwin's right to raise the complexity of what is the Australian examination process, because the Australian PhD ends with a whimper rather than a bang. You click send, your document is uploaded, and that digital document is sent to examiners. And then you wait, and then you wait, and then you wait, and then you worry, and then you worry some more, and you worry some more, and then you panic. So let's stop that worry, let's stop that panic. And so in today's vlog, we have two tasks really. I'm going to talk about the examination from the perspective of the examiner, what happens when they receive that digital document, and then I want to talk about you and what you can do during this time. So Edwin, you're a legend, let's go for it. So our instruction to examiners is that they have 8 weeks to complete that examination. The wonderful Natalie Hills, hi Nat, who is our examination officer, explains to examiners you have 8 weeks to examine. And most examiners return their reports in that time, perhaps spilling out into 12 weeks or 3 months. Now, every now and again, an examiner takes longer than that, takes longer than the 3 months, and occasionally, very occasionally, an examiner does not return a report at all, and we have to approach another examiner and the 8 weeks starts again. But to put that in context, of all the examiners I've organised in the last 20 years, only one examiner never returned a report. So if it happens to you, you are really, really, really unlucky. But don't panic, we'll look after you, and we simply approach another examiner and the clock for 8 weeks starts again. So I do want to start with the examiners themselves, so you understand something of what's going on in and for the examiners while you're waiting. The first thing I would state is examination is really hard. I want you examined by the best scholars in the world, full stop. But the problem with the best scholars in the world is that they're incredibly busy, because invariably they're also fantastic teachers and are committed to teaching, they're fantastic researchers, they're committed to research, they've got a series of consultancies, and a large number of them also hold a leadership post in universities. So when these fine men and these fine women agree to examine it, they're doing it with the best will in the world. They are agreeing to examine, thinking, right, yes, I have the time to be able to do that. And yes, when a staff member accepts to be an examiner, I think we all do it in good faith. Yes, I'm going to do this. Yes, I'm going to finish it within 8 weeks. But the problem is that higher education right now is incredibly volatile. And I'll give you just some sense of this. Even in the Office of Graduate Research, we may receive an email at 9:10 in the morning, and everything we plan to do for the next 3 days is gone as we address with urgency that important email that arrived at 9:10. So we might have the best will in the world and all these things are going to happen, but when the urgent stuff arrives, we do have to handle that. So I'm not making excuses here, I'm just explaining to you the sort of events that occur for these very senior examiners. So, for example, I do my examination on weekends for that very reason. I can't rely on finding time during the week to conduct those examinations, but I can guarantee I can find 2 to 3 weekends to complete that work so I can return within 2 or 3 weeks. That's my priority. Now, a lot of examiners do that. They simply examine during the weekend and return it to you as quickly as they can. Now, I've also received a reply from a great examiner that I was organising for one of my wonderful students that's submitting shortly, and she replied to me. It was a remarkable reply. She said, "Tara, yes, I agree to conduct that examination, and I understand the stress on students. So the moment that document arrives, I will try to commence examination and get it back to you as quickly as I can, because I know the stress on the student." So there are wonderful scholars around the world like that, who are intellectually generous, but there are also men and women who simply their schedule gets away from them, and just understanding how and why that happens, I think, is important for you. So also remember, when we're going, why aren't the examiners responding to the emails? Why aren't they returning their report? Remember that examiners are paid very, very little to do this work. It's incredibly important work, but they're paid very, very little to do so. And remember, your examination is being positioned into an already overstuffed Microsoft calendar. They are tired, they are exhausted, they're hardworking people, and you can understand that at the end of the day, it's 8:30 at night and they're thinking, I've got to start examining that PhD, and they're just simply too tired to do so. So just recognise that. Understand that stuff happens, life happens. And as I was talking about with Edwin, I really do understand about the delay in examination, because my research masters took 8 months to examine. Yes, 8 months. And my PhD took 5 months to examine. So I'm not talking, about opinion or vibe or what I think is going on. I understand the delay. I lived it twice. But I had the 2 best examiners, the best scholars on this planet, examining my master's degree, and I had the 3 best scholars on this planet examining my PhD, and I was prepared to wait. I was prepared to take the time to get the best people to assess my work. And I received my Research Masters with distinction, which is a very, very rare honour at the University of Western Australia when I received it. So that was remarkable. And I received my PhD with 3 examiners, all through as straight ones. And I used these reports to get my first 3 jobs. The reports were remarkable. They stated, this is one of the great scholars of her generation. This is a person who is going to transform the humanities. So they were remarkable statements that I was able to use to get work. And this is what I talked about with Edwin, about the importance of waiting for those reports, because I was never frustrated by the delay. In fact, I simply didn't think about it. I went on with the next thing. So I submitted my Research Masters on the 23rd of December. I commenced my PhD on the 5th of January the following year. I submitted my PhD on Easter Thursday. I then finished the job I was in New Zealand and commenced my next job in Rockhampton in Queensland. So that's what I was doing. And I gave it everything up to the submission, so I worked incredibly hard, made it the best document I could make it through to submission, but then I let it go because I could do no more and it was in somebody else's hands. So I certainly understand why you may be frustrated, and let me explain a little bit about why it is worth the wait for these reports. Now, this is an interesting story. I've never told this story before. My Research Masters took so long to examine that when I brought the reports 8 months later for my PhD supervisor, my then current PhD supervisor, to read, he said to me, I thought you simply lied, Tara, that you pulled out of the master's degree and simply enrolled in a PhD. Now, you learn a lot, I think, about my former PhD supervisor, that he thought that I lied. But that's how long the reports took to arrive. But I always remember his face when he read those master's reports by the 2 greatest scholars on the planet at that time, saying this was the best thesis they'd ever read. So I was watching his face as he was reading these reports. And it was clear that he was intimidated. I could see in real time that our power relationship was transforming. And if I'm honest, the relationship never recovered, because from that point, I was no longer a very junior, very young woman, very young student that he could simply insist, you will add my name to a publication, even though we had no dealing with it. He could try and push that if he liked, or he could say, you will do this teaching in my course. So he tried to push me around and tell me what I should do. But after he'd read reports from two great scholars stating this is a truly great scholar who's going to have a fantastic career, all of a sudden, all that push and pull and the nastiness started to disappear. It became something else. So the reason I've told you that story is because examination matters. Examiners matter. Why? Why? Because they empower the student. They empower you. They take you from a PhD candidature and allow you to meet your future. And trust me, it is worth the wait to get the best examiners. Those names provide tickets for you for future publications, but also for future jobs. Okay, so that's the examination, and that's why it matters. Let's now talk about you and what you are going to do during those 8 weeks, during those 10 weeks, during those 12 weeks, while you are waiting for the examiner reports to be returned. So what exactly are you going to do in those 2 to 4 months? Now, this is an incredibly important period in your life. And actually, it's neglected in the literature remarkably. And I understand why. Because you finish the thesis and you are absolutely exhausted. And your supervisor is also absolutely exhausted. And look, you do have the right, nay, responsibility to go a bit feral for a while. So I always say to my students, you have 1 week to go feral. Hashtag go feral. Do some yoga, drink some hard liquor, go for some tequila if you feel like it, watch Bold and the Beautiful, read some trashy novels, or indeed just try and watch some William Hartnell episodes of Doctor Who. You will be rewarded. So have a great time. But what I'm arguing today is that that great week, that go feral period, should actually stop, and 1 week later return to your supervisor. So what I do with my students now is the week after they have submitted their PhD, we have a meeting and we plan out the next 10 weeks of their career. We put in place a publishing plan and we put in place focused attention on developing their CV. So this is about books, this is about refereed articles, this is about journalism, this is about social media. It's also about skill development and creating those employable skills. So my goal is to build visibility for my students as quickly as possible. So there's lots of phrases we use to describe this period. Post-candidature care is one of them, and my personal favourite is through care. Isn't that great? Through care. Now, the great thing about through care is that comes from the corrections literature. So it's for the prison population as they leave prisons to stop them returning to prison. So it's about through care. And I love the idea that it comes from the corrections literature and it's used for PhD students. Brilliant. So what it's stating is we have a plan from the point you are admitted into a candidature right the way through to after you've submitted your doctorate. So this is an integrated care package for you and for your future. So what I'd advise, and this is really about a partnership between you and your supervisor, is try and come up with 5 big ambitious goals for you during this examination period. So yes, it will keep you busy and it will stop you worrying about your examination, which is actually really important in and of itself. But also remember, and just if you remember nothing else out of this vlog, remember this: you can't control what examiners do. So all the worry about it has no effect at all. So don't worry about something that you can't change. But what I would do is use the time to build the CV and build the career. Come up with finite goals and give yourself weekly tasks. Really do pump out the articles. So with Sunny, we're doing a lot of experiments with her through care at the moment, and we've said to her we want an article a week. So in the 10 weeks, we want 10 articles out at least, and they are her articles, 100% her authorship. But Steve, Sunny and I are also writing other articles with her so we can get even more articles out for her during this period. We are really going for it. But also remember professional development. So this is the time to start thinking about MOOCs, nano learning, micro learning. Go to LinkedIn, do some of those short courses, start to flesh out the professional development component of your CV. So also give yourself a series of finite tasks with social media. So make sure your Twitter's up to date, start to tweet out some of your research interests, make sure your LinkedIn profile is going well, and start to do the podcasts or the vodcasts or the vlogs to give yourself visibility. So tweet out your research, focus on dissemination and focus on widening out your audience. Really important. So if you are looking for work, this is the time to really go for it. So start to go methodically through the Times Higher Education, start to go methodically through LinkedIn, and if you're interested in working in a particular city somewhere around the world once a week, start to go to their websites, the university websites, and see the work that is available. So the key is to have a plan. Work out where you are right now, and work out where you would like to be in 3 months. And this examination period is the link between the two. So please remember, your supervisor will always be your supervisor. If the relationship is a great one, and I hope it is, it can be the foundation for your entire career. Now, almost all of my PhD students are still in relatively regular contact with me. They may be asked my opinion about applying for a new job, want a reference, or want some sort of publishing support, me to write a spruik sentence for one of their books, for example. So this is through care. This is through care that's about decades, not about days. We are always your supervisor. We always care for you. You are always with us in many ways. That never ends. So you are going to need us less as years go by, but whenever you get into trouble, always remember your supervisor is there and we care for you, and if we can do something, we certainly will. So start to see the examination period in perspective. I know when you're in the middle of it, it seems really frustrating and a pain in the butt. It's like, oh, when is this going to end? I understand that. But start to fill that time with tasks that deliver you to your future. I want you to try and find a way to enjoy this liminal time, because this examination will deliver you to what I hope is an outstanding future. I wish you love, light, and peace from the egg chair. Tea out.